Right now, without thinking about it, you're performing one of the most complex choreographies in biology. You breathe in, your chest expands. Air rushes down your windpipe, splits into smaller and smaller tubes, and finally reaches 300 million tiny balloons called alveoli, where oxygen jumps into your blood. Then you breathe out, and carbon dioxide makes the reverse journey, 20,000 times a day, every day, for your entire life. It seems simple, automatic, boring even. But breathing is a high-wire act of physics, chemistry, and evolutionary compromise that's happening in dimensions you can't see, at speeds you can't perceive, with consequences that ripple through every cell in your body. The air you just inhaled is about to embark on a journey stranger than you ever imagined. Your lungs aren't just bags that inflate. They're more like 300 million wet balloons stuck together. And wet balloons have a serious problem. Water molecules at the surface of anything curved pull inward, creating surface tension. This is why raindrops are spherical, and why you can overfill a glass slightly before water spills over the edge. In your alveoli, each microscopic balloon is coated with a thin film of moisture. And surface tension wants to collapse them, like a fist squeezing a water balloon. The smaller the balloon, the stronger this collapsing force becomes. An alveolus is only about 200 micrometers across, roughly twice the width of a human hair. At that scale, surface tension is so powerful that breathing in should feel like inflating 1,000 balloons with every breath. It should be exhausting. It should be impossible. But you do it effortlessly, because your lungs are cheating at physics. Scattered throughout your alveoli are special cells called type 2 pneumocytes, and they're manufacturing a molecular magician, surfactant. This substance is part lipid, part protein, and it does something remarkable. Surfactant molecules wedge themselves into the water layer coating your alveoli, with their water-loving heads pointed toward the liquid, and their water-hating tails sticking up into the air. This breaks up the hydrogen bonds between water molecules, slashing surface tension by up to 75%. Suddenly, your alveoli can inflate with normal breathing effort instead of requiring the lung power of a trumpet player. Surfactant does something even cleverer. In smaller alveoli, where the collapsing force is strongest, surfactant molecules get packed more tightly together, creating more surface tension resistance exactly where it's needed most. This prevents smaller balloons from deflating into larger ones and turning your lungs into a useless foam. Without surfactant, breathing becomes a battle. Premature babies born before week 24 often lack sufficient surfactant, and their tiny lungs collapse with each exhale. Before artificial surfactant therapy, many didn't survive. Oxygen is simultaneously your best friend and a ticking time bomb. Every breath delivers the molecule that powers your mitochondria, those cellular power plants that generate ATP, the energy currency running everything from your thoughts to your heartbeat. But oxygen is chemically aggressive. It wants electrons, and it will rip them from whatever it touches. Inside your cells, oxygen occasionally escapes the controlled environment of the electron transport chain and becomes a reactive oxygen species, a molecular terrorist that damages DNA, proteins, and cell membranes. Your body deploys an army of antioxidant molecules to neutralize these threats. But the battle never ends. Every breath is a calculated risk. Too little oxygen and you suffocate. Too much and you accelerate aging and cellular damage. Your body has evolved to walk this tightrope with precision, maintaining blood oxygen levels between 95 and 100% saturation. Even a 5% drop triggers alarm bells. Breathing pure oxygen for too long can actually damage your lungs. You're not just breathing to survive, you're breathing to survive breathing. You've been lied to about what controls your breathing. You probably think it's oxygen levels, that your brain monitors oxygen and tells you to breathe when supplies run low. That's wrong. Your breathing is primarily controlled by carbon dioxide. And this seemingly backward system reveals something profound about how evolution works. Deep in your brainstem, specialized neurons called central chemoreceptors Constantly measure the acidity of your cerebrospinal fluid. When carbon dioxide dissolves in blood, it forms carbonic acid, making your blood more acidic. These chemoreceptors don't care about oxygen. They care about pH, and carbon dioxide is the easiest way to track it. When CO2 levels rise, these neurons scream at your diaphragm to contract. This is why holding your breath becomes unbearable long before you run out of oxygen. That desperate, burning urge to breathe isn't oxygen starvation. It's carbon dioxide buildup, triggering your brainstem's panic button. Free divers exploit this by hyperventilating before a dive, blowing off CO2 to buy time underwater. But this is dangerous. They can run critically low on oxygen without the warning signal of rising CO2, sometimes passing out underwater. Your body trusts carbon dioxide because for most of evolutionary history, if CO2 was high, oxygen was low. The system works until someone hacks it. Take this same breathing system to 5,500 meters above sea level, and everything breaks. At the summit of Everest Base Camp, air pressure is roughly half what it is at sea level. The percentage of oxygen in air stays the same at 21%, but there are simply fewer molecules in each lungful. Your blood oxygen saturation plummets. Your cells scream for oxygen. Your breathing accelerates, trying to pull more air through lungs that can't extract what isn't there. But this creates a new problem. By breathing faster, you blow off carbon dioxide faster than normal, making your blood more alkaline. Your kidneys respond by dumping bicarbonate to rebalance pH, but this takes days. Meanwhile, you're dizzy, nauseous, and your brain is swelling slightly inside your skull because capillaries are leaking fluid. This is acute mountain sickness. If you stay at altitude, your body starts making desperate adaptations. Within hours, you're producing more EPO, a hormone that tells bone marrow to crank out red blood cells. Over weeks, you can nearly double your red blood cell count. Your blood becomes thicker, more efficient at grabbing oxygen, but also more likely to clot. Tibetans and Andean populations who've lived at altitude for thousands of generations have evolved different solutions. Tibetans actually have lower hemoglobin levels than lowlanders at the same altitude, but their bodies are better at using whatever oxygen they capture. Evolution found a better answer than just making thicker blood. Every breath is orchestrated by a neural network you never think about and cannot directly control. The respiratory center in your medulla oblongata fires rhythmic signals to your diaphragm and intercostal muscles. But this rhythm isn't fixed. It's constantly modulated by information streaming in from chemoreceptors, tracking blood gases, stretch receptors in your lungs measuring inflation, and signals from the hypothalamus responding to emotion and temperature. When you run, your muscles produce more CO2, pH drops, chemoreceptors fire faster, and you breathe harder without deciding to. When you sleep, the rhythm slows and shifts. During REM sleep, your voluntary breathing muscles, except the diaphragm, become temporarily paralyzed, which is why REM sleep can be dangerous for people with breathing disorders. You can voluntarily override this system temporarily by holding your breath or breathing faster. But eventually, the automatic system wins. Try holding your breath until you pass out. You can't. The moment you lose consciousness, your brainstem takes over and you breathe. Your voluntary control is an illusion, layered on top of an involuntary system that's been keeping animals alive for 400 million years. Breathing feels effortless because countless systems are working perfectly in synchrony. Type 2 pneumocytes, churning out surfactant. Chemoreceptors measuring pH with exquisite sensitivity. Respiratory centers firing in rhythm. Hemoglobin molecules changing shape to grab and release oxygen at exactly the right moments. When any component fails, you notice immediately. Asthma constricts airways. COPD destroys alveoli. Pneumonia fills air sacs with fluid. Each disease reveals how many things must go right for breathing to feel like nothing. You take roughly 22,000 breaths today. Each one is a minor miracle of coordination between physics, chemistry, and biology. Each one is an evolutionary solution to problems you never knew existed. The air moving through your lungs right now is following pathways shaped by 400 million years of respiratory innovation, governed by control systems you cannot feel, performing gas exchanges you cannot see, all to feed cellular machinery you've never met. Breathing isn't simple. You're just very, very good at it.